What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk live from St. Vincent College here at Steelers Training Camp. I'm Noah Strackbein, joined every Monday and Wednesday by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. We are wrapping up week 2 of Steelers Training Camp. It was a good one. There were some viral catches, position changes, and the first official depth chart of 2023 has been released. Plenty to talk about, plenty to dive into. It's been a good week. How you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Things are really heating up. Things are really getting real. Like you said, that depth chart with the first preseason game coming up on Friday. Yeah, things starting to feel real. You're gonna get to see some live competition, and you're seeing guys start to emerge, and things start to really be solidified as what we saw on the field gets put into official game action and into writing in terms of that depth chart too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that right now, football, it was back last week, and I think it felt good that it was back last week. You put the pads on this week, it feels even better. We talked about that a bunch of times. Now it's like we are there. We are
Mhm.
less than a week away. This is game week. This is game week's
Right.
here. We are officially entering the 2023 season. Feels real good. It's been an impressive week for the Steelers at practice. Obviously, Kendrick Green lit up the crowd with a position change to fullback, working a little bit with the running backs there. Connor Hayward took a couple of handoffs. George Pickens did some George Pickens things. We're going to get to all of it on top of our reactions to the official depth chart release. We're going to start with Kendrick Green, who made a move from center, guard, offensive line, I guess you could say, to fullback. Cracked that bad boy open on Friday Night Lights, lit up the crowd. I was standing right there, like literally right there during that first reception where he lit up Toby Nadakwe. And I got to say that I felt bad for Toby, for one. It was rough. And two, you felt the ground shake. Like it was the hardest football hit I've seen or heard and been that close to in a long time. It felt real good. It was a it was an exciting move, one that I think kind of sparked something for Kendrick. When you were not there on Friday, but you have seen it since.
Mhm.
When you saw the news, what was your reaction when you realized Kendrick might be switching things up here?
Well, I think it's great for Kendrick, obviously, getting kind of a second chance to find a place to stick with this team. But it's probably not going to be as an offensive lineman, but I don't hate this idea at all. This is a guy who already has some positional versatility. I believe he played defensive line in college, and then in college for a little bit, switched to offensive line. So he's not unfamiliar to position changes, and is a pretty drastic one, but I don't know. I think Kendrick Green's a pretty good athlete. I think he's certainly capable of it, and I don't think it's a bad idea to have some extra muscle blocking in front of Najee and Jalen and even Kenny this year. So I like it. I like it, and I think I just think it is interesting that the Steelers really seem invested in finding a place for Kendrick Green, because it's not something that I thought they were super invested in entering training camp.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of looked at Kendrick and said that this is the end of it. He's probably not going to make the team this year. This is the beginning of the end, maybe of his NFL career. I felt kind of bad for the guy. And then you make this change, and it felt like everything changed with it. The attitude towards Kendrick Green, the fans' reactions towards Kendrick Green, the expectations of him making the team skyrocket immediately. And I agree with you. Like he is athletic enough, and that's what he did so well in college, is be able to pull out of that guard spot and really hit people on the move. That's where I think he shined. That's where everybody highlighted his skills when he was drafted. So I think this is honestly perfect. Like, if Kendrick's going to make an impact as a blocker, I think you have to get him in space, and I think that you have to be able to get him on the move. And fullback is, well, that's the best opportunity to do so. On top of that, to have a guy like Kendrick Green, Monty the Mullet retires, Connor Hayward is Connor Hayward, but you're kind of looking at him as more of like a receiving threat, no matter where he is. Kendrick Green to be a guy that it's second and 1 on the 1 yard line, you're handing it to Najee Harris. Who's better to have than a former offensive lineman wearing number 53 lined up in front of him? That's great. And then the fact that he's catching passes, he was working on the jugs machine after practice today. I just think that he's got the skill set there, at least the baseline skill set to make this thing work. I think the biggest thing that comes with that is you now have question marks about other offensive linemen because if you head into the season and say this works, say Kendrick does stick as a fullback, you now have to question whether or not you make a guy like Kevin Dotson, if you don't trade Kevin Dotson, inactive on Sundays because Kendrick Green probably adds a little bit more to your repertoire and your capabilities than a guy that's maybe your fourth guard on the roster. I think that the change has so drastically set off a series of events that it's kind of wild and very unforeseen.
Yeah, the like domino effect of, all these other positions that are going to be affected just by Kendrick Green making this one position switch is a little wild to think about. Yeah, I agree that he's athletic enough. I don't know. I don't know if I completely agree with your take on Dotson. I still feel like they would, I feel like they'd be in a bad spot without. I get it, fourth guard. That's not a super valuable spot, but do you like? Is the idea that if you do need that fourth guard, what Kendrick Green is going to step in there and relive his offensive line days? Because I don't think that's a completely wild scenario where you would need that extra offensive lineman in there. And
A fourth guy though, because I agree with you. I think that like if it was a third, yes, but the fourth, like I think at that point you're in pretty deep waters if you need a fourth offensive guard. If you've ever thought, why the is my wireless bill so high? Then let me tell you about Mint Mobile, who I'm partnering with for today's videos. You might already know Mint Mobile if you've seen those funny ads from Ryan Reynolds, who is also an owner. But let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell to you direct online. They cut out the middleman. No retail stores, no salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for the same network? Click the link in my description or scan this QR code if you're interested in the best value in wireless. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. I switched to Mint. I moved to the fancy part of town, and everybody made it a big deal when I got here. But what they didn't tell me is that the cell phone service disappears. With Mint, that didn't happen. And I can never tell you how thankful I am to get those text messages and those phone calls when I'm sitting in a dead zone. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their digital eSIM cards, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. If your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card for free. It only takes about 15 minutes to switch, and Mint has great customer service if you need help. I know zero things about the internet and zero things about my phone. So I called Mint and I still got it done in 15 minutes. That's how good they are. Now, as a special limited time offer, you can get their unlimited plan, which is normally only $30 a month for just $15 a month. That's a 50% savings off their already super low price. It only takes 15 minutes to pay as low as $15 a month for your phone plan. It really is that simple. Use our link, trymintmobile.com/Steelers Talk to get started. Or you could check out the link in our description or scan this QR code, whatever you prefer. It helps out our channel. And if you've already made the switch, let me know in the comments.
yeah,
I mean, I guess maybe not
I
because it's only two guys going down, but still.
right, right. That's what I was thinking. So I'm not super sold on that. I feel like there's room for both of them. I do you think this affects the running back room at all, or their kind of their calculus there?
No, I don't think so. I think that if anything, it kind of gives you new light on Connor Hayward, who actually played a little tailback
Yeah,
over the weekend. And I think maybe it, you know, allows him to do a little bit more while easing some of the pressure of like, oh, he has to be a fullback, which means that he's got to contribute as a blocker as well. But I think the biggest impact that it has is the offensive line, because I think that at this point you could I think two things. Like for one, are you like Kendrick Green wasn't making the roster. He wasn't on many of our 53-man rosters. Now At least for me, he is. Like, it's hard for me to say if this works out for Kendrick Green, like they're going to give up on a third round pick that might be able to make that position change and actually contribute. Who do you eliminate to keep him around? You know what I'm saying? Who's the guy that you're looking at and just going, oh, okay, well, like you get the short end of the stick because we found a new fullback. I think that's where it impacts, and maybe that's like a guy like Ryan McCullum or Spencer Anderson. I don't know, but I think that for right now, like the offensive line, just for a guy playing fullback, shakes that whole, especially because he has offensive line capabilities. I don't think that he's necessarily good there, but worst case scenario, you could toss him out there, which adds value to a guy that had zero value 4 days ago.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair, and yeah, and it kind of has to come from the middle of the offensive line. You would think like Will Dunkel is probably has to be another one of those guys that you think might
Yeah, yeah.
be on the chopping block as well. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of that plays out. We'll probably see a lot of these guys in that first preseason game against it's Atlanta, right? I'm not. I got
Now Atlanta's number 2, Tampa Bay number 1.
Tampa Bay's number one. I knew it was someone downside. It was NFC South. I was in there. But yeah, we'll see a lot of those guys work. We'll see. I assume we're going to see Kendrick Green take some snaps as a fullback against
I hope
Tampa.
so.
Right.
I
Like
hope so.
this is going to be the first of like I don't know. They're going to try. I feel like they're going to try out a lot of stuff, and this kind of is the first step in the rest of those dominoes falling. Like you're gonna see Kendrick Green play fullback, and you're gonna kind of see how realistic this is. But then you're also gonna see those other interior offensive linemen who are maybe competing with Kendrick Green for a roster spot at earlier in the week, literally. You're gonna see whether or not they kind of fall in, like how they fall into the depth chart, and which one of those guys kind of deserves to stick around. So
Yeah,
it
I
really
agree.
raises the stakes of this first preseason game, right?
Yeah, dude, I think it does. Do you think that it puts more pressure on the Kevin Dotson trade? Like, do you think at this point because I thought that it doesn't make any sense to not trade Kevin Dotson. Like, it just, in my opinion, there's just no place for him. But I think now, if the easiest route to go about this, in my opinion, is to completely trade Kevin Dotson, and then I think that solves a lot of issues.
What issues do you think it solves? Like I don't know. I still feel like there's a spot for Kevin Dotson, especially if I mean Ryan Anderson is or Spencer Anderson. I'm sorry, is listed as a center right now on the depth chart. Like that's actually where they want to have him playing. If they could get him to a guard spot, like I could see that. But he's also been playing tackle uh during team drills this week and the week before at training camp. So I don't know. That would just make you real thin at guard. I feel like in a way that I think would concern me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm less concerned about being 4 deep at guard. I just don't think that it's like a pressing need in my eyes, at least. Just like something that, like, I think that that's like a worst case scenario. Um, but I don't know. But I do agree with you. Like, I think if you fall into that trap, the last thing you want to do is have Kendrick Green play guard. So I think that that's, like, you still have to find a way to have that worst case scenario. Spencer Anderson does have more flexibility than most of these guys, which I think is big. He's got experience at all 5 spots. He's not Kevin Dotson though. But I don't know. I just think that if you do trade Kevin Dotson, you just don't have any worries anymore. Like, your worries are like, oh, okay, worst case scenario, we have to have a 4th guard go in there. But I feel like at that point, like, if you're planning for that big of an injury, like, you're way too cautious
Yeah.
just like in the grand scheme of things. Like, if it wasn't an offensive lineman turned fullback and we were talking about like keeping a 7th wide receiver or something, the conversation would be totally different. It'd be like, like if it was anything else and you were trying to compare it to like your 9th offensive lineman that you're going to keep on the roster, I just think that we'd be like, well, why do you need 9 offensive linemen
Yeah.
to be healthy on Sundays? And I just think that that's because it's Kendrick Green, and you're like, in our heads, we're just like, well, he can't play offensive line. Like, you can't,
Yeah.
like we have to have a plan so that he's just a fullback, which I do agree. I think that changes some things, but I don't know. I think that we'll see how real it is. I also believe that, he fumbles one ball
Yeah.
or drops one real bad pass, then, this was fun while it lasted. But,
Yeah, we had it fun for a
yeah,
couple of days or whatever.
eventually it's going to go away. All right, let's talk Steelers depth chart. Dropped for the first time this season. I think a couple of surprises came about this. Kendrick Green's listed as a backup center, not listed as a fullback. Connor Hayward is listed as the starting fullback as of right now. He's also listed as a tight end, I believe, the third tight end ahead of Darnell Washington. Zach Gentry is still the backup. Nate Herbig is the backup guard along with Kevin Dotson. Miles Boykin and Hakeem Butler get the number 2 go at wide receiver. Couple of surprising stuff here. I think that Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts was kind of expected at inside linebacker. DeMonte KZ and Keanu Neal are still both listed as the starting strong safeties. And Joey Porter Jr. remains the backup behind Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace. Anything that stood out to you, or what did stand out the most to you this first official depth chart?
Well, yeah, I got to be honest. It was my man Hakeem Butler making a backup wide receiver. I mean that I did not think he had a super strong week last week. He made a couple of splash plays, but other than that, it was not his best work or his best showing. So I was a little surprised to see him down there. That was kind of one of the first things that I noticed. Obviously, yeah, Kendrick Green, backup center, that was pretty big too. Yeah, and other than that, I mean, I don't think there was a whole lot on offense that really surprised me beyond that. The starters seem real set in stone. Like I don't think we're gonna have any
Yeah.
questions about that, but it's kind of those guys further down the depth chart that make you think a little bit, or pique
Yeah.
your interest a little bit.
No, I agree. I agree. I think Hakeem Butler was the biggest thing that stood out, especially because, we kind of like he sparked a lot of interest last week and even at the beginning of this week. And then it got really bad really fast. Like he had two I believe practices in a row where it was just drop ball after drop ball after drop ball. He came back with a really nice day today, I would say. Like
Yeah,
to finish out the week 2, I thought he had a strong showing, which was nice. You want to see that. But I do think I was surprised. I'm surprised for 2 things. For one, Cody White is a third stringer, but he's been running with the first team.
yeah,
Gunnar Olszewski is a third stringer, but he's been running with the first team. Hakeem Butler has like strictly been
right.
second and third team. And it just, to me, that just doesn't, I thought Cody would have been the backup with Miles Boykin and Calvin Austin. Didn't see it was going to be Hakeem Butler. I mean, do you think that that's like a sign of confidence, a showing of confidence that, I mean, maybe they're a little higher on this guy than we think?
Yeah, they must be. I mean, they must be seeing something that we don't. Like I have a lot of optimism about Hakeem's potential. I think he could provide something valuable, even as like a special teamer. But man, Cody White has been unbelievable throughout all of training camp. Really, like we've talked about it a little bit before, but he's been incredible, and so that definitely was weird to see him behind Butler. I'd have
Yeah.
to imagine that comes down to like special teams ability, right? Like that's the only thing I can think of is
But Cody's got special teams a bit. Like that's what like as maybe Gunner has, I mean, me and you, I don't know how much you're paying attention to Danny Smith practices, but I'm not, my eyes are on Presley Harvin and Braden Mann. And besides that, I'm not doing much of watching guys stand there. Maybe he does see that in him. I don't know, but I agree with you, dude. Cody White has looked incredible at this training camp. For 2 weeks now, has been probably the most reliable wide receiver outside of Deontay Johnson on the football field consistently. And is a third. I mean, but maybe at the same time, like that just shows that like, they kind of know who Cody White is and
right.
they're just like, yeah, it be what it be.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna kinda say. Maybe they have also kind of because we talked about that too, like, Cody White, man, he loves to have some good training camp practices, so
Yeah.
maybe they kinda see, maybe they're kinda assuming this is a wait and see type of thing, not trying to jump the gun on the Cody White hype train.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that, I don't know, maybe they're just bored, and there's a part of me that thinks that we're going to talk to Tomlin on Tuesday and he's just going to be like, dude, I didn't even look at this. Like I put names on paper and I handed them to Bert and I let it rock. On the defensive side of the ball, I got to say that Luke Barku was the biggest shock to me. The fourth string corner behind Chris Wilcox and Joey Porter Jr. Didn't see that coming. I thought that was a little disrespectful to Luke Barku and what he's done. But at the same time, Chris Wilcox, I have not been paying a ton of attention to because he hasn't stood out, I guess. And then I think my second one is Kenny Robinson remaining a third stringer at safety behind Miles Killebrew, who has taken like almost zero first team reps.
Yeah, that one's a little weird because Kenny's a little young. I mean, that's got to be a difference to like veterans and experience over. But
Yeah.
Kenny Robinson has been the better player. Like he has been, honestly, I would say one of the better players on this roster in training camp. Like especially on the
Yeah.
defensive side of the ball. Like he's been really really good. He had a great pass breakup today on, I believe it was Connor Hayward.
Yeah, it was Connor Hayward.
It was a great throw from Kenny Pickett, but he broke up that pass not once but twice, and it was I've been so impressed with Kenny Robinson. That's a little disappointing. Trey Norwood has definitely earned, I think, that second string spot, not just because he's experienced, but because he's also played pretty well, especially when guys have gone down or been absent from practice.
Hmm.
But yeah, Kenny Robinson, I think, deserves a little bit better than that, and I don't think Miles Killebrew has done enough to, I think, deserve that kind of respect, honestly, from the coaching staff in this depth chart.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Miles is a special teams guy. I think that he's a lock to make the roster. Like I don't think you have to question that, but like I think it's going to take. I think it would take a lot for him to step on the field on defense in an actual game. So I just don't think that like justifies what they actually mean by this depth chart. Because I think they've shown it already. Like if guys go down, it's not going to be Miles Killebrew taking first team reps. It's going to be Kenny Robinson.
Right.
It's going to be Trey Norwood. So why aren't they the backups and then somebody else? That one shocked me just because it kind of, in my head, I do look at Kenny Robinson and I'm nervous because I don't want him to fall into this. And I think he's about to. I think he's on the path of being the guy that takes a ton of training camp reps, like is just the guy throughout training camp and then doesn't make the roster. Because every year there's one or two of those guys. I'm nervous that's him this year. And I don't want to see that because I think he's actually played well. Like a lot of guys, you're just like, he's taking a lot of first team reps, but he's not really doing a ton with them. Kenny Robinson's doing stuff, and I think that he's actually played well. Luke Barku had a good day today, but I think overall maybe not. So I guess that one doesn't surprise me as much. Chandon Sullivan is over Elijah Riley as the nickelback. I think after this week, I'm a Chandon. I think that's deserved, but I do think that competition is him and Riley, and I think it's very neck and neck, especially after today with the 2-minute drills, seemingly both of them ending or contributing in the end of the defense winning was, I think, significant. What do you think? Let me ask this. Do you think there's a possibility that the Steelers keep both of those guys?
I mean, I think so. Like, I don't know. I just watching Elijah Riley, like, I don't understand. I don't know how you could possibly keep that guy off the roster. He's
Yeah.
been so good. He really has. And Sullivan, I think, like, I think it says a lot that Riley has made this such close competition with Sullivan, because I think people walked into training camp thinking Sullivan was basically a lock or as close as it comes to a lock to
Hmm.
win that nickel cornerback competition. But Elijah Riley is doing more than just making him sweat. I think he's an active participant in that competition. It's not just kind of token depth or token competition. Like that's real. And yeah, I just don't watch. I don't know how you could watch Elijah Riley play and think, no, yeah, we don't need this guy on the roster.
That's what I'm saying.
He's
Okay.
played way too well for way too long. Like another one of those guys who's been consistent all across training camp.
Yeah, I agree. I thought about that today. Like when Chandon Sullivan was having a good practice, I was thinking he should get on the roster too, but I don't know how you keep Elijah off because I think both of them are just so good and guys that you wouldn't want to lose. Like there are guys on this team where you're just like, oh, okay, this is his path to the roster. These are two guys where you're just like, they're just quality players. Like they're quality players that you'd want on your team moving forward. I think there is a possibility they keep both of them. I think that's, another conversation where you have to go through and say like, okay, well, who would they cut? How do you get rid of this guy? How do you get rid of that guy? And you come it down to 53 or you come down to 53. But for right now, I think my mindset is like, if I was making a 53-man roster right now, and preseason determines a lot of this, but if I was making a 53-man roster, Elijah Riley and Chandon Sullivan are both on that 53-man roster somehow. And I would make that work. I would make that work.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Oh, good.
No, just absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah. All right. Last thing I want to talk about, George Pickens, viral not once but twice this week. Couple of toe taps. Started practice today off slow with two drops. and decided, never mind, I'm actually going to be George Pickens. Comes back with an amazing catch, I thought, to kind of intercept James Pierre and come up with a ball that I thought was definitely put into a bad place in double coverage. Made a couple of nice catches there. I mean, I just think overall, George Pickens, what he's shown this week is that it's almost impossible to cover this guy. Like if you're just going to throw the football up to somebody, George Pickens is a guy that it's just like your confidence is so high to just be like, yep, nope, that's he'll at bare minimum, it's not going to be intercepted. Like he'll make something happen, but chances are he's coming down with that football.
Yeah. It if there's anyone that can cover George Pickens this year, he is not on the Steelers. There's not
No.
been one corner who has been able to contend with this guy. It's like superstar level stuff. Like it is, I don't know. He's been really, really special. It's hard to like come up with enough superlatives because it's not just like those big highlight reel catches like the ones that he made, against Cleveland or, even in camp. Yeah, it was this week, like on Joey Porter, and then another one. I forget who was covering him, but it was in the back of the end zone, like a toe tap. He had to extend so high to get it, but still brought his feet down in bounds for a touchdown. It's not just that stuff, that stuff catches a lot of attention, but he's also like doing the little stuff, like he's expanding that route tree, like he's able to
Yes.
to run with a little bit better agility and stuff like that. So you can really see his game start to grow in addition to like yeah, and then he's mossing people everywhere like left and right. He's doing
Yeah.
and then of course he's George Pickens, so he's going to be able to block too. Like the holes in George's game are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're like, look at last year, it was like, okay, George Pickens is going to be a star. We kind of know it. Now it's just like, oh, okay, how good could this kid actually get? Like, how good is he right now? Because it feels like, I mean, like if I'm building a football team, and I get it that I'm biased because I watch this guy every day, but if I'm building a football team, he's pretty high up there on the list of names that I'm considering for a wide receiver. Like he's as high up there as it gets because I just think that you got to remember this guy is young, super young. Is only entering his second year in the season in the league, has gone up against names like Levi Wallace, Joey Porter Jr., and Patrick Peterson every single day in practice and continues to look like an absolute freak on the football field. Like, just like you said, I just I don't know who could stop him. It's not that name's not on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. It's great practice for Joey Porter. Like, I think that's
Oh
the
yeah.
other end of this is that Joey is like there's narratives out there that Joey is not up to par or whatever. No, he's up to par. He's going against George Pickens, and that's just what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I asked George the other day when we were talking about his catch, like the viral over the Joey Porter catch, and I said, dude, Joey said that he had perfect form on that play, and he said, oh yeah, no, it was perfect coverage. He said, and then he gave me the greatest quote ever. He goes, you know, sometimes it's like Michael Jordan and AI, good D, better offense. And I was like, man, that was incredible. But and in the moment, I thought it was incredible too. And but I just think that that's like if Joey's going to lose most of these, and he's going to come out the other side against guys who aren't as good as George Pickens, which are most guys in the league, and he's going to look phenomenal because practice he's going up against somebody who's like almost elite.
Yeah, that's the thing. This is like great competition, like all over the defensive backfield. Like, Patrick Peterson is not been there every day, but he still had to face George Pickens a bunch of times, and these are great
Yeah.
battles that George is winning most of the time. And that's the other thing. Like, it's not just Joey; it's like Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace, like these guys that we are maybe seeing get beaten some bad ways by George are gonna feel much better about themselves when they can go up against different teams, guys who are not George Pickens, and they'll come out on top. And it goes the same way for George. Like these are some good corners. He's doing this stuff too. Like this is one of the better secondaries that are that is in the NFL, even with some guys not in practice every day. This is a great competition for him, and the fact that he's coming out on top against those names is really impressive, and I think gives you a lot more confidence that this is real.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely real. And I think that for Kenny Pickett and a lot like Kenny, I don't know, Kenny's looked back and forth to me, very good, very mediocre at times. I mean, we've talked about this, but I think that you could almost be mediocre with George Pickens and still be okay. Like, and your offense is still going to be just fine, and everybody's going to look really good because he's just George Pickens, man, and that's just what he does. And it's getting scary level, and I'm glad that we got to talk about it because I think everybody's like raving, like, oh, George looks good, George looks like George, and you're like, yeah, no, George does look like George, and George looks like he's on his way to something that the NFL like hasn't seen. And I mean, there's always elite wide receivers, and there's a couple in the league right now, but I mean, I don't know. I'd have to really sit down and watch some film to say that year two anybody looked like George Pickens looked, and I think that's scary good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, with that, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Like this video and find us anywhere you get your podcasts. Check out everything coming straight from Steelers training camp at allsteelers.com and our pit coverage at InsideThePanthers.com. We will be back live streaming, or I will be back live streaming on Tuesday. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.